Hey, Jeff Jantz here at Jantzer Studios, where I make props, sets, and puppets. I'm continuing my video series on the Firebringer, and in this video I'm going to show you a bit about the mammoth that I built, Trunkel, for the show Firebringer. So believe it or not, that giant mammoth-sized puppet actually fits into these two tubs, and that was a really big fun part of the challenge of building that thing, was being able to make it so that it could come apart and go back together so I could store it and ship it, because my plan is to rent this out, and I've actually already got somebody who's interested in renting it out for another show, another version of Firebringer, and so I gotta get this thing packaged up, and then this video is also going to serve as sort of a tutorial for people on the other end who might want to be able to figure out how to assemble it once they get it. So I hope that maybe you'll find that interesting as well, and let's just get into it.
The only tools you'll need are a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver, a small hammer, and possibly a powered screwdriver. However, if you are going to use an electric screwdriver, make sure that you keep the torque setting very low so we don't strip out any of the screws. We're going to start by building the frame for the body, and that's going to be made with these PVC pipes, which includes the tail mechanism. The best way to do this is to turn upside down the mammoth fur, so that way we can slide it all together and build it in place. You'll see that there's these fabric sleeves and the pipes need to slide through those. There's also these Velcro tabs that will hold everything in place, and then in the back you can see where the tail mechanism goes through.
Okay, so we're going to start at the end, the back end to be exact. All of the parts for this thing are labeled. I also have some color codes on there, so it should make it fairly easy for somebody else to figure out how it all goes together, but I'm still going to walk you through step by step just to make sure. Okay, so we're going to set the side with the trigger over here for a minute and just leave it there. Then you can see I have these color coded back here. We're going to stick a flexible blue pipe into that hole and that hole. Make sure that it's below the tail. Then on the other side, we're going to stick in the red pipe, and this is the structure that basically makes the mammoth's whole back end. Then this is the tailbone, and we're going to stick that through here with the little bullseye, and you want to probably place your hand towards the back just to make sure it's going through the sleeve of the tail just right. And then we have these little Velcros on here that we're gonna just fasten around here to make sure it doesn't wiggle around. One there and one on this side. Alright, so there's 4 of these pipes and they're all exactly the same length, so it shouldn't really matter where you stick them. We're going to slide this through the sleeve, and then we're going to attach it into this. Try your best to line up the holes so that we're not drilling new holes every time. And it should go in all the way to that line. If it doesn't go all the way to that line, you might need to give it a light tap while holding on to it. But you want to tap light because you don't want to crack the PVC. Okay, and I think I can see the hole in there, so we should be good there. And we'll repeat the same thing on this side. Alright, so once we get that in place, then we're going to want to put a couple of screws in there. Screws do go through all the way, so make sure you don't stick your hand on the back side. So it's okay to use an electric screwdriver as long as you don't over tighten them and spin them around and strip out the holes. If you're worried you're going to over tighten the holes, use the torque setting. Set it to something low like 4 or 5. and it'll snap when you get it in there. Okay, so we have a back brace here that's going to create the arch for the middle of the back. The screws should already be in it. I've made the holes purple and the screw heads purple, and those go into these two little purple holes right here on this end and the other end, and they go at a slight angle, so it's a little tricky. That's going to face up, which is down at this point because the Mammoth is upside down. We want to make sure we got our sides correct here. So this is the left side and that's the right side. So we're going to make sure we put the left handle in here. There's marks on there, so that should make it easy to line things up. You want to line up the hole and the line. Same thing on this side, we just got to be aware of the cable here. We're going to attach that in here. This one slid right in, so I won't need to use the hammer. Should be able to slide this side in. That one's a little tighter, so we're going to give it a light tap. Be careful not to over tighten these two.
This last section is the simplest part. It's pretty much the same thing you've done before, but even simpler. So we're just going to speed this up for you at home so we don't make this video too boring.
Make sure we don't have our finger on the back side because we don't want anybody screwing through their finger. Okay, so the back half is basically done. We're just going to set it up out of the way for now, and we'll also test the tail really quick while we're at it. So the best way to store this is up and down with the flat end against the ground, and then you can just lean this side up against the wall. But let's make sure that the tail works. All right, great.
Okay, so now we're ready to assemble the head. You've got these bottom brackets. This is a back frame. And then you've got this piece is an armature for the trunk. This is a middle foam filler piece for the trunk. The sleeve for the trunk. The bottom jaw. This is an armature for the ears. And you've got the tusks.
So the important thing to remember when you're putting together the head is that the eyes are a little bit fragile. They're made from acrylic, so it's not like they're as fragile as glass. But if you bang into them with something, they will crack. One thing you can do to make this a little bit easier is set it up on a chair. And as an extra precaution, you can put this piece of foam, which came in the shipping, up here just to protect the eyes a little bit better. This whole project's going to go a lot easier if you have a second person to hold things, but it's just me today, so I'm doing my best. Okay, so we're going to come around here to the back side. And we're going to insert these bottom brackets into these little slits right here. You can see there's an opening here, and then there's a gap between the foam. And then there's a little, the other end of the slot is down here. And then we have the same thing on this side. And then we're going to screw them in where you see these two spots right here. So you want to make sure you got the right on the right, and the left will be on the left. And then you're going to want to make sure that the strap in the center is not twisted or tangled, and then it just goes straight across. It's going to go all the way in up into the black paint. So now we have 4 3/4-inch screws. So now we're going to attach the back brace to the lower head brackets. What we have to do for that is line up these wooden dowels and the cam bolts that you see here and slide it in. Once you have it all the way in, you're just going to lock the cam locks by turning them clockwise until they stop. And I also put some red marks just so you know exactly where to stop it at. Once that's locked in, you're going to find that it's not going to want to sit on the chair the same way anymore. I found the best thing to do is to just turn it this way and let it sit on the braces, and then it should hang over the edge of a chair pretty well. But we're not quite done with this. We also want to add a couple screws in here just for a little bit of extra security. We're going to use these 1 5/8" pan head screws. The next step is to put on the trunk armature. This part should already be assembled in the center, so all you have to do is put 3 screws through these holes down into the bottom where it attaches, just using these 1-inch pan head screws with washers. I'm going to wait before I tighten this one so that way I can make sure all 3 of them are lined up first. Okay.
Now we're going to install the trunk sleeve, but first we have to put the midsection foam on there, and that's as simple as lining up some Velcro.
Then this is probably one of the trickiest parts. We're going to try to get the trunk in there. We want to make sure that this Velcro attaches to the Velcro on the inside of the trunk. So the best way to do that is to kind of pull it in half inside out, so you get kind of this stubby trunk look here. So this strip of Velcro is the exact same length as this strip of Velcro. So if you line this part up on the bottom, everything should line up the way it's supposed to. This is again another one that probably would work a little bit better if you had a second pair of hands. Alright, so once that's lined up, then we're just going to pull this part back over and get the fur sleeve fitted on there just right. Gotta make sure that you pull out all the wrinkles so that way it'll make sure that it makes it all the way back to the beginning. So there are 3 blocks of wood in the inside of the trunk, and they're basically French cleats, so they have an angle here on the bottom of each of them that will fit right into here with an angled piece there.
And one more up here at the top.
And if you get those to line up, then you should be able to screw them from the other side fairly easily. I find it best to try to get the ones on the bottom first.
This is honestly another step where having a second set of hands would make things a lot easier. If one person could hold from one side and then the other can go to the back side and screw things in, it's just going to go a lot smoother.
Alright, got that all set.
Okay, so for the next 2 steps, I found it best to just lay this thing right on its back, and you can kind of lean it up against a chair to keep it from falling over on you, or again, if you have that second person, they can hold it. So we're going to add the mouth and the tusks, and we'll be using these screws right here.
So the bottom of the mouth or the jaw just attaches to the bottom of here with 2 screws. Alright, so the tusks are labeled left and right, so just make sure you get the right one on the correct side, and it should all work out. And basically they just slide in. And I also have it labeled on here just in case you get turned around. So this one slides on this side, and you want to make sure that the little hole is facing straight down. Okay, so this tube basically is the structure for the ears. So we're going to slide that in, and we're almost done.
So you're going to want to slide a little bit on each side at a time and just kind of switch back and forth, working it in a little bit as you go.
And once you get it started, you have to make sure that it also lines up through the fur on the outside. All right, we're at the very last step, and it's a pretty easy one. I mounted it to my stand just because I don't have anyone here to help me hold things in place, but you should be able to do this quickly and easily as long as you have someone to help you hold things. Basically, all we have to do now is just attach a couple of Velcro tabs. Okay, so at the bottom of the flap for this jaw, we have a Velcro tab here. It sticks to this one, square on square. Then we have another Velcro tab on the corner of this foam. This one's a little more rectangular, and there should be a little bubble in here. This is the bubble where you slide your arm up so that you can grab the levers and the handle at the top. So there should be a little bubble or a hole in here that creates a sleeve, and that just goes onto that spot. And then this last gray Velcro tab goes right over here to the aluminum frame. So there are also front legs that clip into place just using these little clips, but that's really something that you do as you're putting the puppet on. So I'll do a whole separate video on how to put this on and how to operate it. So look out for that one coming up next. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at jantzerstudios@gmail.com, and I can answer any questions that you have on how to assemble this thing. So I hope to see some pictures of your show, and I hope everything goes well, and break a leg, a mammoth leg.